It's here. College football is here. That means we need to get ready for the season. And to do so, we're joined by Brooks Austin, the host of the Film Guy Network on YouTube. He's also the director of recruiting at On SI Network. And he's also the lead editor at Georgia Bulldogs on SI. Brooks, good to meet you, man.
Yeah, no doubt. When you rattle off all of the titles there, I'm like, good Lord. It seems like a lot of responsibilities. Seems like I do a good bit. But in reality, it's just I'm a football guy. I think that's the best way to describe me. I'm the film guy. I'm a football guy. I think over the next 30 or 40 minutes, you're going to leave thinking, man, dude loves him some college football. That's me, man. That's my life. That's what I do. It's what I do every day. So I'm excited to talk about it with you. You said it. It's here. I feel like when I walk through the offseason, I feel like I'm walking through the desert, baby, the oasis, like just trying to figure out how am I going to make it to the end of this. And we've gotten here. Fall camp's here. We got college football practices everywhere across the world. So it feels like we're in season now. I know we're like 3 or 4 weeks from games, but I'm locked in, dude. It is the ritual. We're back in the season's grind. There's no doubt.
I love it. I love it. It's here, I say, because I'm already locked in as well. I know it by my media consumption diet, and my media consumption diet has now moved fully into college football. I'm reading camp practice notes every day, primarily from the Texas Longhorns and the Clemson Tigers. But I love it starting now. Who's going to win the camp battles? Who's going to be the starting star at the University of Texas? Star being what they call the nickelback, basically, safety, hybrid, cornerback, nickelback at the University of Texas. But the point is I'm diving deep on the depth chart, on the roster, and that means for me it's absolutely here. All right, I want to do this with you today. I've got a couple of frames that I want to walk through. It'll help us to hit some of the biggest teams and the biggest positions across the country. But before we get to your predictions and your expectations for this coming season as to who is your national championship contender, who's going to be a playoff contender, let's start with some individual players, and nobody cares more about anything than quarterback. We'll start with this. There is one big name. He is my quarterback. He is the star of college football. He should be on every video game preview. He'll lead every SportsCenter update. He'll be the subject of debates on First Take when they do college football, and that name is Arch Manning. Does he live up to the hype, Manning?
Look, I am a hater by nature. I am a guy that wants to second-guess things, wants to, quote-unquote, not believe the hype. I am a show me, don't tell me type of dude. Like, I'm the film guy. I want to see it on film. I was skeptic coming out of high school because I'm you're not playing anybody type of guy. I'm like, I know you're 6'3". I know you're 225. I know you come from a historic family in football. I know you're a great thrower, but you're playing nobody. So I wanted to be skeptical of it. And then you watch it on tape in college. And again, I want to be skeptical too. I understand it's ULM Monroe. I understand it's Mississippi State. I understand it's UTSA. But there's legitimate tape of Arch Manning. There's like legitimate college reps of this dude playing the position the way that you're supposed to, okay? Playing it on time and playing it professionally, knowing where things are within the system and maximizing the system. He made really, really big time throws on tape last year, Will, where when I was watching it, I was one of those people, and I think by the end of the year, there's going to be a lot more of these people that watch Arch this year that look at Sarkisian like, hey, man, why were you playing the Quinn Ewers guy? Like, I think even some of his teammates have talked about this, right? I think someone said today, one of his wide receivers said, Arch has big wheels. Like, he's got big wheels on him. And the reporter basically pushed back and was like, well, what did the other guy have? And the wide receiver kind of looked at him and smiled like, no, this is a different breed. This is a different animal, okay? He is going to drive this Texas offense at a much higher speed than the last quarterback did, in my opinion. I saw real things on tape that make me believe not only is he physically gifted, but he plays the position with the mindset that I thought he was going to have, being a Manning.
Right. Let's talk about hype and skepticism.
Yeah.
I think your initial skepticism is warranted. You know, when I first was all pumped and excited about the fact that he committed to the University of Texas, a lot of my buddies would say exactly what you said. The competition he was playing in Louisiana was really low private school ball, and he's living and surviving and being hyped upon his last name. I think that initial skepticism was actually fair. Then there's the skepticism about his name. And again, I think there's an element of that that is fair because it's what we do. Branding is what everything is about in our society because it's the shortcut to a thought. And if someone is branded prematurely because they have two uncles that were some of the best to ever do it, then it's unearned. But I actually think if you give it a little more time and think about that last name, it's not any random last name. It's not just any other famous random last name. It is a culture and a family that's built around the position of playing football. 3 generations. And not just playing football, but doing it the right way and being mature. And everything that Arch has done has backed up that reputation, not transferring, not rattling his saber to get into the starting lineup, biding his time, putting in the work. I will say, though, you're the film guy, so I defer to you. I have watched every snap that Arch has ever played at the University of Texas. There's a fair still level of skepticism. The most impressive thing I think that Arch has done was the spring game of his freshman year that we got to see. Since then, he's made some awesome throws. He's very different than Quinn. He puts it downfield. Like, he's not looking for the 8-9 yard slant and out. He's looking to fire downfield. And he looked like a young quarterback sometimes, actually forcing it, too aggressive. And then, of course, Sarkisian turned him into a running quarterback at the end of last year, which was a shame, and I didn't understand that.
Yeah.
But it's an element of his game that he has. The point is, I think there's actually a decent level of skepticism that is fair. Like, he's still young. Is he going to live up to all the hype? But I think if you give him a season, by the end of that season, he will have lived up to the hype. The question is, how many picks and how many losses before we get to that maturity? Do we lose to Ohio State? Do we lose to Oklahoma before we see the real Arch Manning?
I mean, Will, you're a fan of Texas, so I ask you this as a fan, not as an analyst. I guess as the analyst asking the fan the question. With the level of talent that Texas has, the type of football players that they have around the quarterback position, don't you want a guy that's going to push the machine as fast as it can possibly go into the corners? Because it's more than likely going to stick. Like, y'all have the best weaponry around. Texas is recruited at a top 3 level at a rate that only Ohio State and Georgia can say. So if that's the case, I want a quarterback that I've got to pull the reins on, not a quarterback that I've got to whip into saying, hey, let's go, man. We got to go. We got an opportunity to win a national title. Let's go. I felt like last year when I was watching Quinn Ewers on tape, there were so many turndowns, what we call turndowns on the network, where the offensive coordinator and the play caller has called this play to get the number 1 read in the progression, the football. And he's wide open because Steve Sarkisian and Kyle Flood are calling the plays. And for some reason, we're just saying no. We're turning it down because we don't have the confidence to do it. It ain't going to be like that with Arch Manning. With Arch Manning, it's going to be, whoa, buddy. Hey, we got a great defense. Let's not turn the ball over too much. I would prefer having the guy that I've got to pull the reins on that's uber talented as opposed to a guy that I've got to almost like provide. It felt like last year we were providing false confidence into Quinn. Hey, buddy, you can do this, man. We believe in you. You're our guy. Let's go do this. What are your thoughts on that as a Texas fan?
I mean, you're spot on from the perspective of a fan. You call it turn downs. I hadn't known that term before, but you'd see the film and you'd see there was a guy open. For some reason, Quinn didn't like the window, didn't throw it. Yeah. And he didn't check down to the running back, but he looked at the tight end or some shorter slant route on his third option. And you kind of, as a fan, get away with it because you're like, okay, he chose. It's like the whole Bill Parcells or Charlie Weiss mentality from the New England Patriots. Like, hey, Brady, take the positive gain. You don't have to
go broke,
force it down.
No profit, all that other stuff.
Exactly. So it was hard to always be mad at Quinn, but there were big plays left all over the field.
That's the thing about the Sarkisian offense,
for.
and I don't mean to cut you off, but that's the thing about that. When you turn down options in Texas and Sarkisian's offense, we're turning down chunk plays. We're turning down explosives, which nowadays in college football, the old adage was win the turnover battle and win the rushing yardage battle and you'll win football games. That's not it anymore. If you win the explosive metrics battle, which is 20-yard and plus plays, you're going to win the football game. That is the way college football works nowadays. So when we're turning it down, we're turning down opportunities to win big games.
Yeah, that's the opposite of the NFL. But you're right. That's what we see winning big games, those big explosive plays. Okay, let's move beyond Texas. Stay with the bigger names Now, the other quarterbacks that everybody's talking about, I'm curious if you're a buy-in on these guys or who. Let's do this. Who do you buy in the most? And I'll give you what I think are the three biggest names outside of Arch Manning. You got Garrett Nussmeier at LSU. You got LenNoris Sellers at South Carolina. And I think we probably have to include, reluctantly, but we have to include John Mateer at Oklahoma. Now, of those guys, who do you buy?
We buy an NFL stock, or we buy in this year's college football season stock? Which ones? Two important questions here.
This year's college football. We'll save the draft for another 9 months. But the guy that can actually propel his team to success. And look, it's not going to be fair because Sellers is not going to have the same level of expectation as Nussmeier, right? But we're talking about guys that might be up there for the Heisman and who are turning 6-win teams into 9-win teams.
Yeah, no, I think LenNoris Sellers is the best quarterback in college football. That's the way I feel about it going into the season. That's the way I think it's going to play out this year. I don't think there's a more dynamic ball carrier in the open field in college football this year than LenNoris Sellers. He's 6'3", he's 243 pounds. If he goes to the NFL Combine and actually runs, which doesn't seem to be a thing nowadays, he's a 4.4 athlete. Like, he's as twitchy and as, like, speed-wise, he is Jalen Milroe, but he is developed as a passer from game 1 to game 12. I'm not going to say unlike any freshman that I've watched, but unlike any other labeled athlete that I watch. Like, when people think of LenNoris Sellers listening to this today, they're going to think, oh, he's a great runner. He's got to develop as a passer. That is correct, but this is a 64% completion percentage guy last year in his first year starting in this conference, okay? He did not also, by the way, he didn't throw it to the other team very much last year. He did early on in the year, but eliminated a lot of those mistakes week in, week out. When I watched LenNoris on tape last year, I didn't think there was a football player going through more progressions of rapid growth than LenNoris at the quarterback position, okay? You talked about Garrett Nussmeier. I think Garrett Nussmeier got the best addition in the transfer portal. Really the only difference maker in the portal other than Dan Keenan, Nebraska, was my man Nick Anderson coming over, sorry to do this, from Oklahoma. But that guy was the best freshman wide receiver 2 years ago, was hurt last year before transferring to LSU, okay? He's going to be a difference maker down there for that offense. Nuss is going to throw for a lot of yards this year. He's going to chunk it a lot, mostly because LSU has been completely inept in the running department the last 3 years since Brian Kelly has been there. You talked about John Mateer. I think the best thing Mateer's got going for him right now is they brought Ben Arbuckle over from Washington State. I love the idea that not only do we pay $2 million or whatever it was for a transfer quarterback, but we also pay the $900,000 required to bring over his offensive coordinator so that there's a level of continuity between the play caller and the leader of the offense in Mateer. But the problem at Oklahoma is still the problem. They got Deion Burks coming back. He's a good weapon. He was banged up last year from Purdue as a transfer. But, like, they brought in a transfer wide receiver from Arkansas, Pine Bluff. They don't have a lot of weapons. Also, they are still not ready, in my opinion, for this conference at the offensive line position. They have plenty of defensive line of scrimmage players, box players, but they are not ready for this conference on the offensive line for 2 years in a row in this conference. So I really worry about their ability to protect him. And not to mention, that is a completely undisciplined football player from a mechanic standpoint, John Mateer that being. Like, he's gonna throw some very errant and wild balls this year because we're not very disciplined with our mechanics. We're a free-flowing football player, which is great in college football, but the higher levels up of football we get, like the SEC, like going from Mountain West to the SEC or going whatever we called their conference last year at Wazoo, there's a level of transition that we have to make. He's got to be a lot more disciplined.
And I should issue apologies. It's because I'm primarily focused. I'm mostly a Big 12 and SEC guy, but I really don't enjoy the Big 10. I don't know why. I'm just not a Midwest guy, so apologies to everybody from the Midwest. But Drew Aller deserves a mention. And then I should have said, because he might actually be the guy who is perhaps on the stage for the Heisman, and I should be paying attention to him because my nephew plays at Clemson, and I'm wearing this Permian football shirt in honor of my nephew. But Cade Klubnik, who, to be honest, his first year or two, I was like, I don't know if Cade is going to translate. As big as a recruit he was, I wasn't sure Cade's going to translate into college football, and I was wrong. I mean, he has come around. Their offensive line has gotten better and given him more protection, and Cade looks really good to the extent that people are talking about him being the best quarterback in college football.
Statistically, he's going to be. They're going to cakewalk the ACC, I think, this year. On paper, Clemson's roster is so far superior to the rest of the conference, far more than any other delta or net difference between the best and the second best in any other conference in college football. They should walk through that conference, and the schedule says that they should do that as well. My problem with Clemson, and you saw this against Texas, yes, their offensive line has improved, but Clemson hasn't had a first-round draft pick at the offensive line position ever. Like, they don't produce elite blue-chip blockers, particularly on the edges, right, at left tackle and right tackle. And when you go up against Texas, Colin Simmons is going to be rushing you 37 times a game. And Colin Simmons is an elite football player. He's an elite athlete specifically. He's very twitched up. And you see Clemson offensive linemen get turned around against these really, really high caliber football players. So I have no doubts they're going to walk through the ACC. My questions about Cade are, and Clemson for that matter, when y'all play the big boys, right? When you go up against Ohio State, when you go up against Georgia, when you go against Oregon, when you go up against one of these elite pass rushing units with elite blue chip prospects, can you actually protect him? Because I watched Cade against Texas, man, and I thought he played admirably. He played really, really well for a football team that had no running game. They had Adam Randall back there playing running back, who they will again this year. They're really, really thin at running back. They couldn't establish a running game to the point where Cade had to start being the design running quarterback that he's not really going to be asked to do at the next level. But I'm more worried about their performances against elite rosters. I think he's going to throw for 4,200 yards in the ACC this year. There's no doubt about that. And I love how he has progressed as a quarterback and the way he plays the position and his competitive character, all that good stuff. But my question is, is he going to be able to hold the ball long enough against the elite rosters? And the answer normally is no.
All right, so hopefully the answer this year is yes. I say this as someone who's kind of plugged into that program and whose nephew does play offensive line at Clemson. Is that they now no? You got to give the analysis the way you see it. I'll just offer you my perspective in response. That offensive line now runs like 7 or 8 deep. They've been together for 3 or 4 years. Matt Luke, who came over just a year ago, really improved that offensive line. And I think I'm not suggesting it's going to be one of the best offensive lines in college football, but I think you're going to continue to see it much improved. Does that stack up against the defensive tackles from Georgia? Separate question, but a much improved offensive line, I think, at Clemson. Okay, before we move on from quarterbacks really quick, there's a couple of guys, young guys, and everybody's bought in at DJ Lagway at Florida. And then the guy that we're kind of waiting on, I think, is Dylan Raiola at Nebraska. And I'm curious if you think either of these guys will emerge. Many people say, Will, Lagway's already emerged, but I kind of hold out judgment a little bit after 1 year. What are your thoughts on some of these younger guys?
So Lagway has more wow throws. Like, I don't think there's a more talented thrower of the football in college football than DJ Lagway. He can make throws that other humans simply cannot. He's that talented. The problem is, I think he knows that. He makes decisions with the football that we simply can't make. For example, in one football game against Tulane, he had an interception inside of his own 20-yard line. We cannot do that. We cannot hand scoring position to the other team. It's impossible. It's like the catastrophic mistake. And we also can't turn the ball over when we're gifted points, right? When we have the ball inside their 20, we can't throw the ball to – he hit defenders, I'm talking about in the face mask with footballs. Okay, we can't do that type of stuff. Just trying to do fun, cool, oh, I'm going to extend, I'm great type of stuff. Sometimes we got to be boring. Sometimes we got to play the position very, very methodically, and sometimes we do have to check the football down. Sometimes we do have to eat sacks. There is a reason why that guy is a sub 60% completion percentage guy or hovering around the line right now as a first-year starter. I forgot who. Oh, you asked me about Dylan Raiola. There's a difference between that guy. That guy's labeled this talented thrower, Will, but that dude's playing the position. I studied him yesterday. That guy's playing on time. Matter of fact, I say he's playing ahead of time. Okay, he has such a porous offensive line in front of him that by the time we're getting to the third read in the progression, I'm getting a right tackle that's getting beat like a steel drum, and I'm getting hit. So by the time I get over here, not only do I need to get over there, because 1 and 2 in the progression are definitely not getting open right now in Nebraska, I'm getting a number 3 and I'm getting hit, but the ball's still getting out. I thought Dylan played the position like a vet last year, okay, and has no help around him. I'm not stats scoring it. I'm not looking at the box score and saying, oh, he played well or he didn't. I'm looking at what I'm seeing on film, and I'm seeing a guy who's being asked to play the position like a pro, playing in a professional offense with no help around him and still managing to play on time. I was really impressed. Now, the thing is, we're a little bit more elongated in the motion than I ever thought we were going to be, but he's extremely talented from the neck up, far more than I thought he was going to be. Long-winded answer, as they normally are from me.
All right, let's talk about teams. Okay. Who is your biggest surprise team of the year?
Oh, man, that's so hard. I don't feel like anybody's coming out of the woodwork now, because the deal is, Will, now we can track you. We can see how much you're spending. We can see how many guys you're going. Like, we can see if you think you're in a window, right? For example, LSU very clearly thinks they're in a window, or very clearly thinks that they have some type of pressure on Brian Kelly. How do I know that? Well, they had very obvious holes at X receiver. They had no wide receiver that was north of 6'3" in that bowl game last year for them. Had nobody that could go get it as an outside wide receiver. They got a bunch of slot weapons. What'd they do? Went out and bought Nick Anderson out of the portal. They had plethora of holes on the defensive line. What'd they do? They went and bought Jack Clyburn out of Florida. They went and got Patrick Payton out of LSU. They went and got Sadir Mitchell out of Texas, who I know didn't play last year at Texas, but that was a blue-chip high school football player. That's a 6'6", 315-pound nose tackle that they needed desperately at LSU. So based off what you're doing, right, based off how you're operating, I can tell you feel like you're pinned up on a window. Oklahoma, same thing. You don't think Brent Brett's up against we call him Brent Brett on the channel because nobody can figure it. On our channel, we can't figure out if it's Brett or it's Brent. I think it's Brent Venables. Coach Venables is obviously pinned up against the window. He went out and bought a quarterback, went out and bought an offensive coordinator. They gave him a general manager. He went out and bought a running back, right? Went out and bought a wide receiver. Very clear to me that old Brent Brett thinks he's up against some type of pressure this year at Oklahoma. So there really are no sneaky teams in college football anymore because we can track the acquisitions. You see what I'm saying, Will?
Well, I do see what you're saying, but I don't think anybody saw the level of competitiveness and the college football playoff last year in the cards for SMU. So I think we thought SMU would be pretty good, but that was a surprise team last year. And so I wonder, who is our
the national viewpoint?
Who's our
but you're
SMU?
Dallas, man. You're from Texas. You know that's oil money down there. So like you know that SMU was able to go out and buy athletes. That's why SMU was good. So by the way,
the answer may be, if not this year, I think it's going to be very soon. The guy who's also a guest on our show today, driving the bus at Texas Tech, Cody Campbell, is going to be joining us here after you. Is the answer could be Texas Tech because they're buying everybody. It may take a couple years here for them to get
I think it's going to take a couple.
The guys in with all the budget, but they're buying. They're buying out in West Texas.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of really good football players too. Like I love Romello Brinson, the edge rusher they added. So, like, I love some of the pieces that they're going out and bringing in. And I love the idea that if you care about your football program nowadays and you have assets that you're willing to, give away or pay to a young athlete, then your football team can be good. I think that's awesome. I think that's good for Texas Tech. Well, I mean, how else are they going to get, like, super competitive, Well,
I also think
I know Cody's coming on, not to take a pot shot there.
I think Cody, by the way, is the Border Regions board director at the Texas Tech University System, and he's the big money behind all their NIL purchases, not just in football, softball, basketball, everything out in Red Raider land. But to me, the Big 12, look, they've got an automatic playoff spot, and I don't know. I mean, I think that somebody's going to get it. It's going to be TCU or Texas Tech or somebody, and I don't know. I mean, all it takes is one win in the playoffs, and you're on to the second round, and you're the surprise team of the year. So, that's coming from the outside. That's coming from a Big 12 bid. I don't see a group of five. But let's spin it the other way then. Who do you think is most overrated, most likely to disappoint? Who has these expectations, and you don't see them fulfilling them by the time we get to the playoff?
Yeah, so, man. How's it feel that James Franklin's entering a football season with high expectations? Anybody feel good about that?
Right. Right.
Like, we got a guy who, like, historically does not win big football games. I don't think Penn State has won a ranked home game or beaten a ranked top 10 football team in like 10 years or something like that. It's been a while. Okay, now, here's what I've always said about James Franklin and Penn State, and Will, feel free to agree or disagree here. James Franklin always gets crapped on for never winning the big games, right? Not beating Ohio State's, not beating Michigan's, right? Being the third fiddle in the Big Ten. Some would argue fourth fiddle now that Oregon has come into the mix. And my question to those people is, when has James Franklin ever had the best team on paper? You know what I mean? When has James Franklin ever gone into a big game against Ohio State and the world been like, James Franklin ought to win this game. He's got the best team. It's never really happened for him. It's going to happen this year. I think a lot of people are going to look at this Penn State team on paper and go, wow, they returned more starters and more production than anybody else in Power 4 football. Oh, look, they went out and added the Sabor kid from Syracuse, right, who was a 1,000-yard receiver last year in the ACC. They went out and added some of these pieces and bodies. Oh, look, they retained the 2 running backs. Oh, look, people think the quarterback's a first-round draft pick. Oh, look, they spent $3 million on the defensive coordinator, right? Penn State's got a lot of expectations that normally require, or I would say demand, you go win a national title. And I don't know if they're going to live up to that. So that might be one of those football teams you look at as like an underachiever.
One thing Penn State does have, though, is I think the right way to describe him would be a known commodity at quarterback. I'm reluctant to say a great quarterback, and he's obviously not a terrible quarterback. He's good. I mean, he has NFL aspirations, Drew Aller. What I don't know is I don't know how good the quarterback situation is going to be at Georgia or Ohio State. Mm-hmm. I know that they have big-time 5-star recruits, young, ready to play, but I don't know what those guys will be yet. Like, how good will Julian Sayin be at if he wins the job at Ohio State? And that's a question for 2 teams. Look, those 2 teams, along with Texas and Oregon, are your betting odds favorites, national championship contenders. And I don't know what I should – it's pretty big question mark for 2 of your top 4 or 5 teams to kind of have questions at quarterback.
Yes, well, with one of those teams like Ohio State, it's not just the quarterback, right? It's the brand new offensive coordinator, right? Brian Hartline's taken over that job after Chip Kelly went out to the Raiders to be their offensive coordinator for, I think he got like $7 million a year, something crazy it felt like out there with the Raiders. But that's a big – like, I expect Hartline to do fine. Like, it's hard to mess that machine up there at Ohio State. And I expect Julian Sayin or Luke Keinholz, whoever wins the job, I expect them to be fine because I'm not going to feel sorry for you. You're throwing to Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, and Brandon Ennis. Like, good Lord, dude. If you can't do well in that system, you're just not gonna. All right, you're not going to be an elite quarterback if you can't do well at Ohio State this year with the amount of weaponry that they have. You talked about Gunner, man, like, the thing that people keep talking about with Gunner, and honestly, it's been talked about so much that it sounds like a backhanded compliment, but you are a college football guy, Will. I can tell that by talking to you. I've listened to you over the years. I know you know college football. And in college football, whether or not your teammates not just like you, but love you, like if these dudes ride for you constantly, that matters. That is a real thing. Gunner Stockton has that about him. No different than Colt McCoy had that about him. No different than Tim Tebow had that about him. No different than these legendary winning college football quarterbacks. I'm not saying Gunner's going to be that. I'm just saying he's got this intangible about him that makes the other 10 guys in the huddle play much, much harder. All right. And I also think the 10 guys in the huddle this year for him, particularly at the weaponry positions, are far better than what they were for Carson Beck a year ago. So I'm bullish on what the intangibles of Gunner Stockton are for a football team that I felt like was missing that to an extent, at least at this rate, at the quarterback position the last couple of years.
Came in and beat Texas. Alabama. I was looking at Dane Brugler's draft preview. He's putting it out position by position over at The Athletic. And, man, I was like, look at this. Everywhere that it matters, offensive line, defensive line, both tackle and end, it's Alabama all over these lists. And I'm like, I think we're so caught up sometime in the Texas, Georgia, even LSU talk that we forget about Alabama, who also we don't know what's going to happen at quarterback. But, I mean, it's hard to say Alabama could be a surprise, but what do you think about Bama?
Yeah, I don't think people that do my job, I don't think they're doing a good enough job of explaining just how foreign of a quarterback Jalen Milroe was to Kalen DeBoer last year. I went and tracked it. The last 7 years, you go all the way back to Fresno State in his days at Indiana, okay? Kalen DeBoer has averaged north of 4,000 yards passing every single year that he's been calling plays or a head football coach for basically the last decade of college football. There is 1 year where his offense is through for 2,900 yards. It sticks out like a sore thumb, and it's last year at Alabama. Kalen DeBoer, that is, he does not want mobile quarterbacks, okay? He does not prefer them. I explained this to our audience yesterday. If you gave Kalen DeBoer the option of 1,000 Matt Ryans or 1,000 Mike Vicks, he's taken 1,000 Matt Ryans every single time. How do I know this? Look at his player acquisition history. Go back to his time at Washington. He brings over Penix from Indiana, right? He gets Austin Mack, the 6'6", 225-pound kid, to reclass, right? Graduate high school early and get to Washington early. That's a pocket passer, immobile, like statuesque type of dude. He can run some, but he's not like an athlete, right? Right before he leaves Washington, who's the quarterback that he gets out of the portal? He goes against Will Rogers from Mississippi State. If you know anything about college football, you know that dude's not an athlete. He gets to Alabama, and it's like, hey, the leader of the program is Jalen Milroe. And he's like, all right, well, we'll figure this out, right? I have never had one of these. Go back to Fresno State. I had Jake Haener, a 5'11" pocket passer, right? I've never had one of these. I'll make it work. And that's what their offense looked like last year. It was I'm going to try to make it work offense, right? He gets to Alabama now. This year he's got Ty Simpson. I think it's going to start there. Behind him is Austin Mack, and then it's Keelan Russell, the 5-star that he signed out of high school. Keelan Russell's a right-handed Michael Penix, in my opinion. That's what the film says of him for me. Okay, look at the guys he's signing right now in 2026. Jet Tamala, he signed the kid out of Utah that's 6'6", 240. Like, this dude does not want mobile dual-threat quarterbacks. He wants guys that can sit within the pocket and throw downfield for 4,200 yards a year, because that's what the system does. They're going to be so much more comfortable offensively this year, no matter who the quarterback is, because they're not going to have to figure out how to make an offense. Not to mention, he gets Ryan Grubb back at offensive coordinator, which Alabama fans know about him, that he ended up going to Seattle last year. It didn't work for them up there at Seattle offensively, so he's back down at Alabama. I think that's a massive addition for that unit, because they're just much more cohesive, and I think the offensive coordinator and the coach are far more comfortable with the style of offense that they were playing, because last year they had no idea what to do.
All right. Man, this was an article I saw this morning on The Athletic, but do you know this? You're such a college football guy. You probably have this stat buried somewhere right there in your memory, maybe even recently. I was looking at the 2021 recruiting class, and they had it broken down by positions and percentage of transfers. And we'll just stick with quarterback. Do you know the percentage of quarterbacks coming out in 2021 as recruits who transferred away from their program?
It's got to be north of 75%.
It's really good. It's 84%. 84% have transferred, and a good chunk of those guys transferred more than once. And the analysis was the guys that transferred once often found success. If you're transferring twice, it's rare that you end up finding success wherever you're headed. But, I mean, just highlights how crazy this all is and how fluid it all is. I'm trying to figure out, we're breaking in new players, either freshmen or transfers every year, even at the highest programs to some degree. So with all that in mind, what are you seeing at the end of the season? Like, what if I had you project on into the college football playoff and you said, Will, here's what a semifinal is probably going to look like. Who are those four teams?
Yeah, so like Texas, Georgia, Ohio State are always going to, like, perennially, as long as their football coaches are where they're at, as long as they're recruiting at the rate that they are. You asked me this type of question in August, I'm going to spit those three names out at you. Now, the last fourth spot to me is who's got the easiest path. Hello, Clemson. I just told you, I think Clemson's dog walking the ACC. I think they got a punch ticket to the playoff right now. The real question to me in college football right now is, what is Oregon going to be? Because Oregon's got the Indiana schedule of 2025. Like, I think if Oregon loses a football game, it might be the Penn State one, but that's it. They're going to be favored by 14 points or so in almost every other football game this year. I don't mean to say a joke of a schedule but it's a joke of a schedule. They got one top 25 team on the preseason schedule for a team that went 13-0 last year. Like, it's – anyways, but they have questions at quarterback. Like, everyone knows Dante Moore's talented, but I just got done watching the UCLA tape. That was a beaten, mentally defeated football player. The last time that guy was on the field in college, it didn't go well. All right, and he's set for a year behind Dylan Gabriel, and by the way, has no weapons. Like, he's got Dakarian Moore, all right, and then outside of that, they're in deep trouble at weaponry department out at Oregon because Evan Stewart's hurt now. So they've got a bunch of questions. I know they got a super talented tight end. I know they brought in a big, heavy transfer at left tackle that's supposed to be an NFL draft pick, but, like, there's a lot of questions at Oregon that everyone's just bypassing because we know they're going to dog walk the schedule, but they still got to win in December and January, which in my opinion, Will, is what we're going to be judging Dan Lanning on moving forward. Like, you got to go win a playoff game, dude. Like, you've gotten there multiple times. Go win one. Go win a big football game. I think a lot of people are going to start looking at Dan a little bit, funny, a little side-eyed if he doesn't start winning these football games. Lost to Washington, a couple years ago against DeBoer. Lost that game last year at Ohio State. Won the one at home and then got smoked in the playoff, right? So there's a lot of, hey, Dan, you better win one of these big games. I know you're going to walk through the regular season.
Okay, last question. It's a little bit repetitive and reframing something I asked you earlier when I asked you about a surprise. But by the time we got to the playoff last year, there were teams that we were not talking about in August. And I do think SMU is one of those. There was big questions about how they would translate into the ACC. They translated just fine into the ACC. But it wasn't just SMU. It was Arizona State. I don't think anybody was really, really saying Arizona State's going to be in the college football playoff. So, I mean, you watch a ton of film. You've looked at all of these teams. Like, who's the team we're not talking about now that we will be come January?
I like a couple of things. These aren't national title contending teams, so I'm gonna miss that. I think nowadays in college football, there's like 9 teams that have spent and recruited the last 3 years at the rate that you need to. And look at the preseason top 25. It's going to be those top 10-ish teams. But I look at a program like A&M, right? Marcel Reed's second year, really first year as the guy. Colin Klein, second year as an offensive coordinator, but really the second year in that system as being able to know who your quarterback is, right? Know what the system's going to be. If you watched A&M last year, particularly on tape, you saw them trying to figure out an offense with Connor Weigman and then figure out an offense with Marcel Reed, and really no cohesiveness with either of those types of offenses. They just felt like everybody was just trying to figure it out on the fly. And that's not a good good way to go about offense or offensive structure. I think having this offseason of Marcel Reed is the guy is very, very important for this football program. Now, a total off the wall. All right, this is not going to reach any of your base. This is just me being a absolute football nerd. I like Jonathan Smith. All right, and you probably don't even know who Jonathan Smith is, Will. I don't mean to put you on the spot. Jonathan Smith is the head football coach at Michigan State. Okay, Michigan State is a football program that has been in the dumps since the stuff happened with Mel Tucker, okay? They were off the radar. Like, nobody's showing up to games, can't even get high school recruiting classes together. John Smith has taken over that program. Aiden Childs is a legit football player at the quarterback position, and they're showing signs of life of a football program. Here's how you show signs of life of a football program to me. Get some new transfers in, right? Get some new blood. Fill half your roster with some new pieces that were high character, high caliber football players at lesser than universities. Bring them in. He's doing that. Also, rebuild your roster through the high school recruiting ranks. Michigan State, they're in the top 30 right now in recruiting. Top 30 at Michigan State, which is a very, very far step from what Mel Tucker was doing, which was just 100% rebuild every year, get 50 new transfers in. We're going to turn the roster over every year. We're a crapshoot. I think Jonathan Smith is building a 4th, 5th, 6th ranked Big Ten team, which is really, really important territory to be grasping, right? It's really, really important.
If you had put me
important area.
If you had legit put me on the spot and said, Will, who is Jonathan Smith? With the only thing you gave me there at the beginning, I would not have gotten it because A, it's a generic name, and B, because it's a generic name, and B, I didn't know if you're talking about a coach or a player. But the minute you said Michigan State, yeah, I know who Jonathan Smith is. He came over from Oregon State. They hired him a few years ago. He's like in his 2nd or 3rd year from Oregon State at Michigan State.
This will be year 2 at Michigan State.
The only thing he's got going for him is the Onathan. John Smith is about as generic of a name as you can probably get. He might be one of the few Jonathans going by the full thing.
Hey, but damn good football coach. You mentioned it. Like, you win at here's the litmus test. If you win at Oregon State, you're a dude. You're stamped. You're a good football coach. If you win multiple 8-9 win seasons there, you're a dude.
I had something when you brought up A&M. Are you suggesting how many bids are you suggesting in a 12 team? We're 12 one more year, right? Are we committed to going to 16 next year? I can't remember if we've committed.
I think we'll go to 14 and then 16, but inevitably we'll be at 16. I think inevitably we're going to
So
a
are you
Super
suggesting
League, but that's
out of 12? How many you given to the SEC out of 12? Because we talked about Texas, Georgia, Bama, LSU. Then you mentioned A&M, and I'm trying to think, are we forgetting somebody else? I mean, I don't know what Ole Miss is going to be this year with Jackson Dart. Vanderbilt's going to surprise a little bit. But I don't know if they're going to be in the playoff. How many bids for the SEC?
I think you're approaching 4. I think you're going to get 3 from the Big Ten, 4 from the SEC is 7. The automatic charity is 8. That's the non-Power 5, by the way. So they'll charity a non-Power 5. Big 12 has to get 1. That's 9. ACC has to get 1. That's 10. Notre Dame's almost guaranteed. As long as I've been alive, Notre Dame has not finished outside the top 12, but like once. So they're almost guaranteed. So that's what we're up to, like 11 or 8 or 12. So, yeah.
You're at 11.
I think we have an opportunity.
And last year the ACC got 2.
Yeah, ACC's probably going to get 2. So there you go. Yeah. There's 12. I think there's an opportunity for the SEC to get 4. I just think there's going to be such a collection of 10-2, 11-1 SEC teams. I don't think anybody's going undefeated in college football anymore unless Oregon can figure out that schedule and beat Penn State, which is plausible. I mean, James Franklin's records in big games not great.
As you can tell, he lives up to his own self-billing as a football guy. Brooks Austin, check him out. The Film Guy Network on YouTube, and a bunch of other attributions. But he says in the end, all you got to know is he's a football guy, and he proved it here today. Man, it was good to have you on the show. I hope to do it again, Brooks.
No doubt, brother. Appreciate you, Will.